Hey, it's Dr. Charles, aka CoachMD. In my over 30 years of medical practice, I've made it my goal to help you create a great life by achieving a strong mind, a healthy body, and an unshakable spirit. What I want to talk to you today about is a new study which shows the biology of aging, the biology of aging study, which shows why curbing calories counts. And this is from the NIH blog that talks about this study. The NIH National Institute of Aging broadly in the National Institute of Health on Aging, the NIA, broadly invests in research to find ways to help people live longer and healthier. Who doesn't want that, right? As people age, they are more likely to have multiple chronic diseases, and NIA-supported research studies reflect a strong focus on geroscience, the science of aging. The advanced area of science seeks to understand the mechanisms that make aging a major risk factor and driver of common chronic conditions and diseases of older people. And, some of you know, but I am a medical advisor for a privately funded research lab that looks at these kind of issues and that studies them. And aging itself is kind of a disease. If we look at aging separately, the changes that happen in our body are actually very similar to what disease processes. So you really could say aging is a disease. So if we focus on aging like that, it's possible we could fix that disease and age more gracefully. It doesn't mean living forever, but it means making the life that you live much more vibrant and healthy. So let's take a look at this most recent study. More than 85 years ago, researchers at Cornell University, Ithaca, New York, observed that some lab rodents lived longer when fed a lower-calorie diet that otherwise had the appropriate nutrients. Since then, many scientists have studied calorie restriction to shed light on the various biological mechanisms that may explain its benefits and perhaps discover a way to extend healthy years of life known as our health span, right? Well, living longer, yes, but who cares if we live longer if we're unhealthy? We want a health span. We want that to increase. Although there have been many studies of calorie restriction or caloric restriction since the Cornell findings, the NIA supported clinical trial CALORIE, which stands for Comprehensive Assessment of Long-Term Effects of Reducing Intake of Energy, because calories are energy, provided critical data on the impact of this intervention in people, caloric restriction in people. Completed in 2012, CALORIE was the first carefully controlled study to test whether study participants undergoing moderate calorie restriction would display any of the benefits observed in animal studies. Volunteers for the CALORIE study were healthy, non-obese adults ages 25 to 45, and that's a key area because if you can achieve health in that area, it many times in that time span, many times that reflects to how you are later in life, how healthy you are later in life. People in one group were randomly assigned to continue their customary dietary choices, and those in the second group were trained by an expert team of psychologists, and dietitians to restrict calories through specific strategies such as eating smaller servings of food. In addition to demonstrating that people could sustain moderate calorie restriction for 2 years, the calorie study also showed that this intervention could diminish risk factors for age-related cardiovascular and metabolic diseases. The calorie investigators also made their data and biological samples available for other research teams to study further, and that's the key. When you open this up to other researchers, they can find exactly what is being influenced in your body with this intervention. That's the most intriguing because then we may be able to reproduce this kind of study and we could actually apply it to our own lives and not just the lives of rats, right? Laboratory rats. Recently, a team led by Vishwa Dixit, Yale University, New Haven, Connecticut, examined calorie data to investigate the effects of, they say calorie restriction, I'm used to calling caloric restriction, on immune function. The findings published in the journal Science suggest that calorie restriction may improve immune function and reduce chronic inflammation. And that's the first to go when we get older. Our immune system decreases, and that's why you saw with the virus that the I'm not going to say it because just by saying it, this could be taken down, right? But the virus that's affected our world in the last 2 years, the most susceptible to more severe effects of it were those who are older, 65 or older. And that's because our immune system, if we do nothing and to intervene with it, it's going to decline and make us more susceptible. As people and inflammation, we have less in our body to curb inflammation as well. As people age, the size of the thymus, which is the part of the immune system that tends to become smaller as we get older. As this organ shrinks, its output of T cells declines, which hampers the ability of the immune system to combat infectious diseases. The disease of T cells is one of the reasons people over age 40 are at increased susceptibility for a range of diseases. And also, the immune system going awry, it also causes, we don't have as much inhibition of those inflammatory processes. And that's why that was the biggest problem with the virus, is that it causes an inflammatory response to go out of control. And also those people who are overweight and obese and older are more susceptible to all of these things to happen, and that showed up with the virus that affected our world, that has affected our world. Dixit's team noted that MRI scans showed the thymus volume increased among people who reduced their calories for the 2-year calorie study, but was not significantly different in the control group. The increase in thymus size in the group restricting calories was accompanied by an increase in indicators of new T cell production. Next, the team analyzed immune system effects in belly fat, samples from people in the calorie study. The team discovered that the PLA2G7 gene, which codes for a protein involved in fat metabolism that is made by the immune cells such as T cells. Okay, so let's go over this. They looked at a gene. Now, genes code for proteins. That's what genes are. So there's a protein that's involved in helping fat metabolize. And that gene is made by immune T cells. So it's interesting that a gene that involved in fat metabolism is actually in our immune T cells. This was suppressed after calorie restriction. That's interesting, with evidence that the suppression occurred in immune cells present in fat. So we have fat contains a lot of more than just not looking good, right? They hypothesized that this gene could have played a role in the improved thymus function resulting from calorie restriction. So if it suppresses this gene must be, it runs fat metabolism. If it's present, the protein is actually going to suppress fat metabolism, meaning you're going to have less fat metabolism and it's going to make your fat grow, right? It's not going to break it down more. But if you suppress the suppressed, right? If this gene is for suppression and you suppress the suppressed gene, it's going to allow for proper fat metabolism, for fat breakdown. So that's a very interesting. A negative causes a positive. Yeah. So that's interesting. To test this hypothesis, the team suppressed the PLA2G7 gene in lab mice. When these mice were 2 years old, which is equivalent to a human age of about 70, the thymus had not decreased in volume. In addition, the mice had decreased fat mass and lower levels of certain inflammation-promoting substances. So this must have something to do with inflammation also, which happens in fat. The fat cells are loaded with pro-inflammatory cytokines, they're called. Those are inducers of inflammation. These findings suggest that mice without this gene might have been protected from age-related chronic inflammation, which has been linked to many conditions of old age. Taken together, the findings extend our understanding of the power of calorie restriction and suggest that it might also improve immune function and reduce chronic inflammation in people. The results also indicate interventions that influence this gene, PLA2G7 function, might have favorable health effects. Additional research is still needed to assess the health effects and to determine whether calorie restriction extends lifespan or health span or both in humans. The NIA is funding more studies to determine the benefits and risks of calorie restriction, as well as the mechanisms that account for its effects. So you don't really need, honestly, this study to kind of be honest with yourself and understand that healthier, more fit weights are better for you. And we saw that with the virus that has struck and caused this pandemic. We have seen that those people most at risk were those people older and obese. So if you're older but not obese, you didn't have as much of a risk of serious illness. And there's reasons for that. And these studies are hopefully giving you more proof to live a healthier life, a more fit life, and to think about what you eat and to moderate. So until next time, I'm Dr. Charles, aka CoachMD, urging you to stay strong in mind, in body, and in soul. Bye for now.
Dr. Charles, CoachMD. Thanks for stopping by. Make sure to like and comment below. I'd love to hear from you. If you think you have a friend who might benefit from this video, share it with them. For access to exclusive content, support my Patreon. There you'll get private access to videos, meditations, health tips, even relationship and financial tips. You'll have a say in what I produce and be able to participate in a monthly call with me. Don't forget to follow me on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and subscribe to my YouTube channel. See you soon.